Hey, what's up guys, Dan Watson, LearningCameras.com. I've got the Fuji X-T2 here, and this is really an interesting camera. It had a lot of video features to it, really looked like a great option. You're talking 4K video recording internally at up to 30 frames per second, even outputting via HDMI. With the battery grip, we also have a headphone out as well as a mic input, so you really have pretty much all the features you could want. You can also plug in power with this thing. 3 battery packs, so you can have 1, 2, and then 1 inside the camera. And then you also get the advantage of being able to record for 30 minutes when you also use that battery grip. So it really looked like Fuji was doing a lot with this camera to make it ideal for video. However, there are a couple things that make this camera just not ideal for video. And I'll tell you, my biggest thing is going to be these dials on the top. All these dials are very nostalgic for photography, and sometimes they can be good, sometimes they can be bad. For video, really, they've been a pain. And that's because they're extremely noisy. They have a lot of click to them when you rotate them, and it's really difficult to actually move these without shaking the camera. So it's almost impossible to try to change your settings without altering the camera in some way, moving it off of a tripod. So I really find this to be not ideal for video because of this. So here's the good thing. There's kind of a way of getting past it a little bit, and there's definitely something that Fuji can do to make this even better in the future. And the biggest thing is that we do have what your normal aperture dial would be, a dial right here and another one in the front that would be great for altering the shutter speed, except by default you can only alter the shutter speed in 1/3 increments from wherever you are. So if I set the shutter to 1/30th as it is right now, I have a little bit of control. I can go to 1/20th, 1/25, 1/30, 40, 50, and then I'm limited out. So it basically gives me some small minor adjustments on the shutter because you don't have all of those minor adjustments. You basically only get 1 stop increments on your actual shutter dial. So that's a little bit there, and it lets you make small changes with the actual shutter dial. Unfortunately, you cannot do this with the aperture dial. The aperture dial is going to be determined by this right here. It also clicks, it's also noisy. It's a little bit better than the actual dials on the top as far as making less noise and being a little less clicky. However, it is there, and it's the only way to change your aperture on this. You cannot program it. It doesn't seem like you can program it on these to be good for this one. And the same thing is true for the ISO. Now, I found one trick around it. I don't know why Fuji hasn't done this for all dials, and maybe they will sometime in the future. But if you go to this T mode, it basically is there to let you shoot very slow shutter speeds. And the advantage to this is it actually gives you not just those slow shutter speeds, but it lets you change your shutter speed all the way around. So I'll go ahead and put this in and start recording video. I'm on photo mode right now. All right, and now we're recording video. And this gives me control over my shutter between 24 and endless. So I do have some control on that. However, my aperture cannot be controlled by this. It is still going to be dictated by the lens. And my ISO also does not have the option of going with that. So you're still stuck with the ISO being the way that it is. So I don't know why Fuji doesn't give us the option of setting it to like an L or an H or something like that, and having us program in that L rather than programming in a specific low ISO, that maybe it could trigger something that would let us adjust the ISO via a setting and then a dial or something like that in it. And the aperture as well, the aperture should be easier to do that because you don't actually have a setting. It's an endless dial. And so there's no reason that Fuji cannot let us control that aperture via this. But at least give us control of the ISO, and we kind of have it through the shutter. So I'd recommend doing that with the shutter. I kind of keep mine on that T, and it's going to let me use the shutter with this rather than this. And you can still use this if you want. However, for video recording, I find it horrible. And even for photos, honestly, for fast shooting, I prefer to do it with the main dial. So anyway, that's my trick to get around being able to use the shutter in a way that's a little bit less clicky and a little bit less noisy for video and also for photos. However, it would be nice if Fuji gave us that ability to be able to do it inside the camera for both the ISO and the aperture as well. So stay tuned. I'm going to have the full review out, a lot more coming up. But I just wanted to show you that quick tip for shooting video with the Fuji X-T2.